Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. What are we talking about this week?
We're going to talk about Cameo, the celebrity messaging app, which has hit the skids. We're going to talk about Tubi and fast, free, ad-supported television channels.
An existential threat to Netflix. And we're also talking about the entertainment industry and China, and video games and films and what happens in China, what happens outside of China, all that kind of stuff.
Shall we begin then on Cameo?
Yes, shall we?
Now, this was started in 2016 by three guys. And basically, if you haven't sampled Cameo, celebrities have to sign up, or sub-celebrities.
How dare you? I've been on it for 7 years.
Well, and you can get a personalized video message from a celebrity. And it's one of those businesses that really took off in the pandemic and was randomly valued as $1 billion, making it a unicorn, as they call it, a tech startup that suddenly becomes $1 billion company. And this is the biggest why. You'll have to explain to me why it has now hit the skids really quite badly. They were recently fined for a sort of endorsement advertising thing in the US, and they were given a $600,000 fine. They were unable to pay the $600,000, which if you're $1 billion company, you probably should be able to find down the back of one of your fun breakout area sofas. And
one of your non-fungible sofas.
One of your non-fungible sofas. So they could only pay $100,000, and that had to be split between 30 states. So they had 400 staff in 2020. I think they've now got 33. What's gone wrong, Richard?
It is an amazing story, because I think, as you say, a lot of us sort of became familiar with it maybe around about lockdown, when we realised we could get John Virgo to record a birthday message for our uncle, which is a great service, I would say. Yes, set up by three guys, the two main guys, Stephen Galanis and Martin Blenko. Martin Blenko was an NFL agent, and Stephen Galanis worked for LinkedIn. And Martin Blenko got one of his clients, Cassius March, to just record a video. He was an NFL player. Yeah. I don't know. Are they quarterbacks and things in that game?
They are.
And he recorded a message for a friend who just had a baby. And Stephen Galanis saw how unbelievably thrilled his friend was at getting this. And the two of them put their heads together and set up Cameo. And it's one of those things, they essentially found as many sports people as they could, as many reality stars, as many actors, signed them up, put them on this website. You pay £30, £40, £50, depending on whoever it is. You can get anyone to send a personalized message to your mum, to your friends, to your WhatsApp group, a million different ways to do it. They will say anything you like within reason. And it sort of took off because everyone wants a personalized birthday greeting from, Kevin from The Office. And Kevin from The Office wants to make $40 a pop to record it.
I think they sort of want it for 5 minutes, and they definitely want it in the pandemic when there isn't so much human connection. It feels to me like such a pandemic success story that then you're like, hang on, what was all that about?
Well, the reason it worked in the pandemic is this. It's not that everyone was bored and thought, I need to get messages from people. It's that everyone in the entertainment business was not working.
Yeah.
And everyone's source of income had gone. So lots of celebrities signed up, because the key problem that Cameo's always had, as you said before, celebrities and D-listers and things like this was always the image of the thing. And they needed other people to sign up. They needed bigger celebrities. They needed the likes of Floyd Mayweather, who eventually signed up to do it. And during the pandemic, people did, because there were no other sources of income. So,
also during the Screen Actors strike last year, that was the only time its popularity sort of came back, because, again, as you say, people's income streams had dried up.
Exactly that. So what you had was this company, Cameo, which had a very, very visual product, which whoever you are, wherever you work, whatever investor you are, you could be sent a message from Caitlyn Jenner and you go, wow, this company is amazing. Who is this company? So people started looking into Cameo and thinking, this feels like a big deal. This feels like a company that could grow. And we often talk about the era of low interest rates and the awful abominations that came out of that. And Cameo is one of them, because they suddenly found it incredibly easy to raise money. Because, this is the secret of the last decade or so, is idiots became billionaires because you could just borrow as much money as you want. Money was absolutely free, and people who knew that were able to take advantage of it. So Cameo had several funding rounds, and as you say, by 2021 were valued at $1 billion. Now, Stephen Galanis, who runs this, let's say he's not short of ambition, and that's good. That's to be applauded, I would say. But let's also remember that a lot of this company is based off just people asking John Virgo to wish their uncle happy birthday. Okay, that's the
you're treating a celebrity as a sort of meat puppet, aren't you? You're basically making them. You're giving them the message. You don't sort of say, "Well, by all means, say your own thing." You're telling them what to say, and as a result, that has been quite a liability for celebrities. By the way, I have to mention him because we've just seen how much he makes for Cameo a year. Nigel Farage constantly records cameos. I can't remember last time I looked, he was listed at £70. I don't know what he's listed at currently, but for a message. And he says he works on it for 24 hours a month. And he just sits all the way, even through the election, he just sat there recording them. But he has done things like people have tricked him into saying pro-IRA statements.
Up the rah.
People just make him say sort of ridiculous things, but he honestly, as you know, he literally doesn't care. I've said something slightly off color. Oh dear. So he doesn't mind.
I mean, to be fair, he's going, do you know what? I've been paid a lot more to say a lot less.
Yeah. But the trouble is that bigger celebrities, I did actually see for a while, Brian Cox was listed and he was $689, I think, for
Which
a
one?
message. Brian Cox from Succession, sorry. So I'm sure he could tell you to F off or whatever in the style of Logan Roy.
Fuck the fuck off. Well done, Edward.
But even he, who clearly thought, well, this isn't a bad way to make extra money, has removed himself from it, because I think a lot of people's representation said to them, don't do this. You don't know what you're saying. Half these people just aren't, they'll just read out anything, I'm sorry to say.
See, here's the problem, is it's a really beautiful business, actually, that works for everybody. The guys who set it up, they spotted a gap in the market. That gap in the market was definitely there. People wanted what they did. Celebrities wanted to do it. So someone like Brian Baumgartner, who is Kevin in The Office, he was making $1 million a year from doing cameos, right? Because he would charge $70 a pop and he would do so many of them. James Buckley, Jay from The Inbetweeners, he would do 37 cameos a day, and he made $1 million from Cameo as well. And that to me is a lovely business, because who's being harmed? Galanis actually said, look, this really, really, really works for celebs who are more famous than they are rich. Brian Baumgartner and James Buckley are both in ensemble comedies. So they're not making as much as Jerry Seinfeld from their comedy, but they are unbelievably famous. So that's the absolute sweet spot. So you've actually got a really nice business there. But what happens is what always happens in these stories. You start to grow, people start investing in you, and then they need you to grow more and more and more and more. Right, so there's two things happen. Firstly, they give you a load of money, and Martin Galanis was very good at spending money. So again, this website, which I'm going to keep harking back, is John Virgo saying happy birthday to your uncle. They suddenly had a big festival called Cameo Palooza in 2021. Kenny G opened it. I can
just imagine their offices.
Can you imagine? Paula Abdul played, Vanilla Ice played. Stephen Galanis said his plan is to build one of the most important, beloved consumer companies of the generation, as enduring as what Walt Disney did for the last century.
Wow, he's not held back by self-doubt, is he?
They rented their own Cameo house in Hollywood, which was $60,000 a month. They were getting through $5 million a month. They were spending huge amounts of money. Galanis, of course, got into, what do you think he got into? Crypto art. Yeah, of course, it's exactly what he did. He spent hundreds of thousands on, little monkey pieces of art that hackers then stole from him. So essentially, John Virgo wishing your uncle happy birthday. Galanis thinks, no, I'm Walt Disney. And you think, you're not. You've got a really nice business here that could keep you and your friends. You could, honestly, this would just see you through for the next 30 years with lovely money. But everyone wants to be Elon Musk. Everyone wants to be Mark Zuckerberg. Everyone wants to be a billionaire. And that's what happened to this company. So their current predicament came about really because Cameo is still there. You can still go on there and get Wolf from Gladiators to, toast your new baby. But given they needed to have growth, they started doing things like they launched an ad arm where celebrities would endorse your products. And you can sort of see the point of that because advertisers will pay an awful lot more than, I would pay for my uncle. But they didn't really label these things as adverts quite as much as they should have done. So they got into all sorts of regulatory trouble.
I quite like their idea of rolling it out to kids.
Yeah.
I mean, the 2 messages from Gladiators that you have got, my daughter Richard, have been watched about 1 billion times.
Oh.
So something like that means a huge amount to children. I thought that was a sort of good idea. But in general, it is a small and weird and gimmicky business. One thing I think is quite an interesting one to contrast it with, it's a similar thing. It does provide a connection, if we can call it, euphemize it as that. Something like OnlyFans, which also was a huge pandemic kind of success story. And that's mainly adult content creators, although they do now have musicians and fitness people and comedians and what have you. That is a hugely successful business. And that has gone the opposite way. They have 220 million registered users. They got to 100 million faster than Facebook did. They have 3 million content creators. That is the trouble, you see. There weren't that many celebrities on Cameo. It was too risky for the big ones. As you say, there was a sweet spot. But in terms of that scalable thing, which we always have to talk about, if you want to go really big, you need to have so many different creators, as they're called. And that's what something like OnlyFans has done and has been incredibly successful.
Well, because the creators have a lot more control over their own output there. Yes. On Cameo, you've got zero control other than saying, I don't want to do that video. But OnlyFans, you can actually, you can curate it.
Yes, OnlyFans you can create. And that has been, they've gone in completely opposite directions. And you can see in lots of ways that they had similarities to them. But one has become a mega business and one is going to fold.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful folly. And, it is, I can't wait for the definitive book that someone writes about Cameo and the excess behind it. It's sort of summed up by when they were really absolutely awash with money and everyone thought this was the greatest idea anyone had ever had. They had a promotional idea, which is called One Giant Leap for Fankind, which was one lucky Cameo viewer and one Cameo celebrity were going to be sent into space. That was going to be their competition prize. And this is, you just think, yeah, I absolutely get it. You can get someone from Heidi High to, wish a happy retirement for your boss. But to turn that via the medium of low interest rates into, we are sending 2 people into space, is the most 21st century story possible, I would say.
I've got a huge amount of time for it.
Yeah.
It's such fun.
The Russians got a load of celebrities. Russians went on Cameo, got a series of people. They got Mike Tyson, Sean Astin. They got Dean Norris from Breaking Bad. They got them to send a message of support to a friend of theirs who was suffering from substance abuse issues. They then edited it together as if these celebrities were sending a message to Vladimir Zelensky to encourage the rumor that he had substance abuse problems. So they created a fake video. So all of this stuff.
State actors making fools of actual actors is a sad state of affairs, isn't it?
I know, but hey, that's show business, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the people working there got upset because to chase that money, they started chasing people like the Tinder swindler and people like that. People who were famous for doing bad things were suddenly going on Cameo and being really, really courted by the leaders of Cameo. George Santos, the American politician who's just been drummed out for fabricating all sorts of things, he was an absolute sensation on Cameo. The Trumps started getting in on Cameo, and it got to a point where some of the people working there were getting uncomfortable with what Cameo was becoming. I don't want people to worry too much about the people who set this up. I will say that, because the one thing, if you want to grow a unicorn and if you want to become a startup that just has real staying power, is you don't sell your shares. You never sell them. But actually, these guys all did. They tucked a few shares away. They sold them. Bethany Frankel, the Real Housewife, who was an early investor, she did the same thing. They already made some money back in the early 2020s. So now, when they're sort of virtually, when they are short on cash, they have all cashed in already. So it's they have feathered their nests, which is not what you're supposed to do, but it's what they've done. So I don't want people to feel sorry for the people behind Cameo. I do, it is a shame because it's a really nice idea. it brings joy to an awful lot of people. It's really simple. It connects people who have something to sell with people who want something to buy. It's a lovely little business, like a bike shop on the high street.
It's a little business.
Yeah. If we were to go on Cameo and do a Wrestlers Entertainment, if we were to go on there and send a nice "see you next Tuesday" message to someone of someone's choice, what do you think we should charge?
Oh, God, well, I don't think I could do it convincingly. I've got to be honest. I would find it so boring, just like doing it. So I would have to charge a very little. I'd have to charge £1 because I couldn't commit to it. I couldn't commit to the bit, Richard. Whereas some of them can. Farage really tries to sell it, even when he's being given any. It's not a great delivery, but he really tries. Whereas I'm afraid I would find it incredibly dispiriting. I mean, it's nice, I guess, giving birthday messages. Why would I find it dispiriting? But I would be constantly passing the birthday messages thinking, am I being hired by the Chinese state to say something here that I haven't quite realized? Is this a slogan that actually means something totally different to Gen Z?
And why are they only paying me £1, if so?
Yeah, that's what I've asked for.
That could be your niche if you just gave very awkward, dispirited birthday messages to people. And just said,
I'd love that. If someone like Aubrey Plaza or Jenna Ortega can give those incredibly I can't believe I'm here readings that are so funny that are somehow hugely appealing. So I'd watch them just be like, why am I reading this birthday message? And I'd pay quite a lot for that. But for me, no, I don't think I would. I would pay for. I think you'd really sell it.
You would pay for me. Listen,
I don't need to. That's the thing. I mean,
we've been doing this a while now. I can tell you exclusively, if you need me to record a video, I will not charge you.
Some of the names that we've used in that segment might not be on Cameo. We're just using them as illustrative examples. But
that sounds like a legal thing you've just been asked to say by a producer. Is that right?
I'm afraid it is. Yes.
Wow. I wonder what that is. Who have we mentioned? He's heard something, hasn't he, Neil? He's heard something. He's gone, do you know what?
Virgo will come for us.
See, Virgo was definitely on it. He may not still be there. I don't know.
Brian Cox was definitely on it, but is no longer on it.
God, we've obviously upset somebody. Oh, who is that? I wonder. I'm going to listen back. Where's the cue ball going? I would pay £1,000. No, I wouldn't.
This episode is presented by our friends at Sky, proud partners of The Wrestlers Entertainment.
Can we talk a little bit about the incredible range of documentaries that Sky show?
Please, I love a good documentary.
There's an incredible one called Klitschko, More Than a Fight, which is about Vitaly Klitschko, former world boxing heavyweight champion, currently mayor of Kyiv.
And that comes out on the 15th of August, and it draws on a whole wealth of archive, personal footage, new interviews to tell both brothers' story.
If you love true crime, there's a new documentary called The Body Next Door, which is out now. A really, really fascinating case, a fascinating crime, and a very well-made documentary. But can I save the best to last? The best for me, anyway, which is a documentary that's currently shooting, will be coming up soon. I have just one word for you: darts. The whole world is obsessed with Luke Littler, this incredible 17-year-old. The world of darts is so extraordinary, amazing characters you don't quite get in any other sport.
I think it's fair to say.
So yeah, it's a drive to survive for darts, and Sky are currently filming that, and I literally cannot wait.
An absolute banker there.
So immerse yourself in the world's most captivating stories with award-winning documentaries from Sky.
Now, we are now going to talk about Fast TV, which is free ad-supported television. Tubi. I want to say Tubi.
Tubi.
Tubi. It's very American, but I want in the way that I want to say JZ.
I want to say Tubi or not Tubi.
Tubi or not Tubi.
Which is the pronunciation.
Yeah. Now, this is a service that recently launched in the UK. They've been going in America for some time, and these free ad-supported channels are bigger. They have bigger market share than things like HBO, Paramount Plus, and Peacock all together. That's NBC. I mean, Tubi is as big as Disney Plus, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, so over here, the story of the last few years has been we have these big premium streaming services, the Netflixes, and as you say, all of that, and the Amazon Primes, and that's the way that TV's going, and it's killing linear television, and people just want to pay their X pound a month and have these incredible streaming services with really high-end content. And what's happened in America, and I suspect will happen over here, is these channels have sprung up all over the place. Tubi, Roku, absolutely loads of them, Pluto TV, which is owned by Paramount, and they are completely free. They are ad-supported. Where do they get that idea from? And there are thousands and thousands of these channels. So as I say, these fast channels, there's a whole channel which is just Homes Under the Hammer. There's a whole channel which is just pointless. I discovered to my absolute horror the other day. So if you want a cameo from me, just go on that and you can probably cut out each individual word to build whatever you need. And people are loving this, and people are mainly loving it because it's free. You do not have to pay for it. And actually, that idea that all we want is premium TV and new shows, that's for quite a small amount of people, the type of people who write in newspapers.
I'm sorry to say that content is not a meritocracy, that content is completely subservient to distribution. People don't care whether they're watching your 6.9 rating murder mystery or somebody else's 5.7. So little consumption of content is must have. Things like Game of Thrones, they were must have. But how much of that is there honestly out there? And people love to tell themselves this story that it's like, oh, you have to, what people actually want, it's called saliency bias. They want the thing that is in front of them and they click on it. 80% of Netflix journeys are via the Netflix button. You start and you go and look around what's on. Okay, people are not, all this kind of like destination stuff. It's nonsense. I'm sorry to say that distribution is far more important than content.
And that's the fascinating thing with Tubi and all of these, is yet it plays into that thing that yes, everyone talks about the amount of hours in their catalogue, and I think Tubi in America's got 200,000 hours, and most of Netflix is a very similar 200,000 hours, apart from, as you say, the big sort of marquee things. So the business model of all of these things is, if you don't really, really need to see these big new things, all you want is the rest of the 200,000 hours, then just come here. You're not paying. The ad load, the amount of adverts you see in an hour is actually lower than it would be on terrestrial TV. It's about 8 minutes an hour instead of 12 minutes an hour. So it's a fairly seamless experience. As you say, that thing, that the passivity, which we took absolutely for granted as kids and people of our generation, of you turn on the TV and you watch what is on. And if it's not the thing you want, you switch over to BBC Two or ITV or Channel 4, and then you watch what's on there. And the received wisdom is that that's the thing that's disappeared completely, because we have absolute total choice, and so we can browse and browse and browse until we find the thing we want. But human beings, actually, they don't really like too much choice. But human beings don't really like too much choice. We have absolute choice paralysis. There's so much on, and so this idea that you can literally just go down the fast channels and go, oh, there's Homes Under the Hammer, there's A Place in the Sun, there's Come Dine With Me. And you just watch that. You watch the episode that they've put on at that moment for you. You watch a few adverts. You watch the next episode that's on.
And the thing that people said was that, young people, they want destination view. They go there and they don't want any ads because they're not used to them. Okay, this is all bullshit. They've grown up with YouTube. Okay, they'll watch a ton of ads. They like things to be free and they don't mind ads. And they also don't just want short form video, which is another thing people say. They really like long things. They like lots of long form things and they want to sit in front of it. Again, we come back to this saliency bias thing. As people always say, if you want to hide something and have nobody find it, put it on the second page of the Google searches. And this is why people spend such a lot of money in the EPG, the electronic programming guide, to be up there near the top, because people get very bored scrolling down. So what it shows to us again is that content providers are just totally subservient to the platform owners and to the platforms. And once you've got people on your platform, you don't really have to serve them a gourmet meal. You just have to serve them something, and it has to be there and it has to be easy. What people do need is access to prominence. This is why, as we've discussed before, people will pay a lot of money to be higher up the EPG. Again, second page of Google syndrome. But this has been the evolution of digital TV, is that people thinking, oh yeah, no, no one will watch any ads, none of this sort of stuff. People are wrong again. And as we've discussed, Netflix is going back to a much more sort of, many things are appointment to view. It's becoming much more of a TV channel, and all of these streaming services are bringing out these free tiers because people want free things and they feel that they have to have a free tier because otherwise they're going to lose out to these ones that are only free.
And also, by the way, when we talk about shows being non-premium, if I sit and watch, Border Patrol Australia, that's a brilliantly made television show. These shows are brilliantly made. It's not trash. It's not swill. These are made by program makers who love it and who have a format and that it's compelling to people. So it's not like, oh, we'll put out any old rubbish. There is such an enormous back catalogue over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years of great television shows, which you very, very happily sit down, have on in the background while you're on your phone doing something else as well. And that is an enormous market. And it's a market that people who still stay with linear TV also, that's an easier way for them to get into streaming than to go straight to Netflix. If my mum goes on Netflix, she doesn't know when things are on. So, whereas with this, you're like, okay, I can turn on this and I can watch, Judge Judy all day long. So it's one of those lovely kind of sweet spot markets that we lost between us telling ourselves endlessly that linear TV was over, which it sort of is, and between saying that, these Game of Thrones type shows are the future of television. Right in the middle, as always in culture, is pretty much everyone. And pretty much everyone is the target market for Tubi and Roku and Freevee and all of these things, which are going to get bigger and bigger, I think.
But Tubi's owned by Fox, and as we said, they launched last month, I think, in the UK.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to fare in the UK market, which, as we know, has lots of great free-to-air television and free-to-air linear television, and the channels are easy to find. They have great access to prominence. It's a different proposition to what they've said is, we're going to try and do, we're going to try and serve sort of more niche audiences. We're going to try and we're going to try and fandoms and communities and things like that. And we've seen that, like, supposedly underestimated audiences, non-median viewers in things like romantasy, that genre which we've talked about, something that's just sort of been missed by an industry. I think they're going to have to they're going to do some originals, but they are going to have to go a little bit more niche because the mainstream free is very well catered for.
Well, I think that's the fascinating thing over here is it's about to show us something very interesting. It's about to highlight something very interesting that already exists. Now, in this industry, Netflix are fine, YouTube are fine. They're both around 10% of viewing, and they know their business. They do it incredibly well. The trouble is for the smaller streamers, the Disney Pluses, the Amazon Primes, Apples, all of that kind of stuff. But
it's mad that we're talking about, something like Disney as one of the smaller streamers. And a lot of people won't get that because it seems so prestige. It seems so big. They have these huge, big shows that they spend a massive amount of money on. And this, as you say, it's about to show us something.
Yeah. Well, I think what it's about to show us is we already have some of the greatest fast TV in the world because we have All 4, we have ITVX, we have My5. I mean, iPlayer doesn't even have adverts. We already have this extraordinary bank of programs and programming, and the executives at those channels worked out this was coming a very long time ago and have built this stuff up. And, Channel 4 have been very good at really, really skewing All 4 as young as they possibly can, and, spearheaded by things like Married at First Sight and Taskmaster, because they sort of know that this is where most of streaming is going. There's always going to be, as I say, YouTube is always going to be fine. Netflix is always going to be fine up to the point where something catastrophic happens. But for the rest of that industry, actually, there's a lot of eyeballs to be won. There's a lot of money to be made. And ITV, Channel 4 and BBC all have a big advantage, which in the States doesn't really exist. So I think Tubi will find it harder. But I think, weirdly, when you present something that you've already had as something new, people love the novelty of it. So, you can find Tubi on your smart TV and download it and look through it. And actually people will enjoy doing that. And it will take about 18 months before you go, oh, but hold on, I've got another channel that's like this, haven't I? ITVX, which has got loads and loads of big dramas that's not on that. You think, oh, I'm gonna spend some time on that as well. This stuff already exists in our country and already has this incredible bank of programming. But it's just, we talk a lot about the fact that billions and billions and billions and billions have been spent to get us back to exactly where we started. In TV, and a number of people have made billions out of it and spent it on crypto monkeys and all sorts of things. But we end up where we always started, which is an awful lot of people like to turn the TV on and see what's next. And that's where there's always going to be plenty of money there. And linear TV as we know it will be dismantled at some point. But the heart of it, you hope that Channel 4 and ITV and BBC are able to use this new world and, this massive market to still stay relevant, to still stay profitable and still be investing in original British programming. So I think probably it's quite a hopeful story.
Yeah, with the original fasts, with the exception of the BBC, which doesn't even have to have the ads, as you say.
Yeah, that's just first BBC. Marina, shall we talk about China?
Let's please. China and the entertainment industry. There's been a huge story this week. A computer game was released called Black Myth Wukong. It's a Chinese studio called Game Science, and it's pretty much the first, they call it a premium AAA game, which, it's got very, very high production values. Although a lot of Chinese gaming actually happens on mobile phones. This has come out for the PS5 and for PC. But it came out on Tuesday. It's got a Monkey King as the main character, so based on this kind of Chinese cultural epic called Journey to the West from the 16th century. But anyway, by Wednesday, it had topped the charts worldwide. On Steam, which is one of the platforms you can play it on, it had over 2.2 million peak concurrent users, which means that it's been the most popular game in Steam's global history.
And Steam is the single number one site. If you're the most popular on Steam, you are the most popular in the world.
So this is extraordinary. It's got masses of press in the Chinese state media, as you can imagine. But they've been really iffy about gaming, by the way, in China, because they felt like people are becoming we know the feeling. People are becoming addicted. They had a console ban until 2014. So 10 years ago, you couldn't even use a PlayStation. This game, you don't need a VPN for it on Steam, so that's a change. And the Chinese state media have called it a cross-cultural bridge. So there's a real change in attitude. They've allowed the creators to have interviews in state media, things like that. Now, one of the drawbacks, Western live streamers, who are a big way of getting any game out, you watch people play it on a live stream, and that it becomes a big part of the marketing and the publicity. So people who are allowed to play it early. You're warned not to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic, which includes any words like quarantine or isolation, feminist propaganda, not entirely clear in what context you might discuss that, and no other content that instigates negative discourse. So there's been a whole oh no, look, the censorship of the games. Well, it's very interesting when you think of the West's attempts to push culture the other way into China, which have been enormous. And a lot of people are completely unaware of this, but it has been massive. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about Hollywood, if I can, because I think that's an interesting way into it. Now, recently, another movie that came out just recently, Alien Romulus. Now, that has hugely overperformed in the Chinese box office. And in a world where theatres are shutting every week, where people aren't going to the cinema, to have access to China, which is obviously, and it briefly in the pandemic became the biggest movie-going audience in the world, was huge. And Hollywood has done everything for it. And it's done it all covertly. And it's very, very bad, I think. The Chinese censorship department. Now, they re-allowed movies in the sort of end of the 80s, at the start of the 90s. You were allowed once more to watch foreign movies in China. They were completely banned under the Cultural Revolution. But they had a quota. So you were allowed 20 Hollywood films, 14 what they call commercial films. And they wanted those things to be very technology-based, like IMAX, 3D, things like that. And they needed the product, basically, to get their film industry off the ground. And America obviously needed the money. So if you've lost money on US screens, say, the sheer volume of people that may potentially see your movie in China could help you recuperate. This is a place where movie theaters are still opening. The government directed building of 100,000 cinemas. Okay, so this is the sort of dream in lots of ways.
That's a lot of pick and mix.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of pick and mix. But in order to make the quota, certain themes could not be portrayed. This is why you show me a Hollywood movie in which you've seen a Chinese villain for 20 years. You haven't seen anything like this. You show me a movie which talks negatively about the Chinese government. They don't, okay? You've got the obvious things, the 3 Ts, they call them, Tibet, Tiananmen, and Taiwan. Okay, so anything remotely connected to those has just been stripped out of films. any actor who's by mistake called, like John Cena in Fast 9, he accidentally on a promo tour referred to Taiwan as a country. He had to do a huge apology video when it wasn't quite clear what he was apologizing for because he couldn't use the word Taiwan. And there are these consultants who will come on your movie set and explain how best to jig your movie to appeal so that you can make it onto the quota. And for a long, long time, Hollywood did everything they could to do this. So what you find, and what that effectively means, is that the Chinese censorship department has been censoring Western films, Hollywood films by default, because people covertly, but because people are trying to appeal to them, they have tried to hit all of their targets and not mention any of the contentious things. And that has been the case. So for a lot of people, it explains what has happened to cinema over the last, 20 years. When you think, it makes it clear if you think, I see, they've been marketing actually at Chinese teenagers and not Western adults. And that makes a lot of things much more clear.
And it's fascinating that it doesn't massively work. I mean, as you say, Alien has done good business. I think it did $26 million or something. But very, very, very few Hollywood movies in even the top 100 highest grossing movies in China of all time, because the Chinese film industry is enormous, but almost all based in China. Chinese films, the biggest ever
really
movie
good
there.
Now.
Yeah, The Battle at Lake Changjin is the biggest grossing Chinese movie ever. It's made almost $1 billion, and no one outside China has really seen this movie. And it was it was produced on behalf of the Central Propaganda Department of the Chinese Communist Party, and made $1 billion.
I have seen quite a few Hollywood war movies that feel like that the other way.
Exactly.
So the jingoism, we can't shut our eyes to our own forms of jingoism.
The interesting thing about the word propaganda in China is it's not seen in a pejorative way at all, in the way that it probably wasn't in America 40, 50 years ago. Propaganda is literally, well, of course, we're promoting China and the Chinese story. So propaganda to them is a very positive thing to do. But so they call
it main melody. Those movies are called main melody. Patriotic themes or anything it's main melody movies is a patriotic theme.
Wolf Warrior 2, another absolutely enormous one, but they don't really play outside China particularly. And there's a number of quite interesting reasons for that. So President Xi wants bridges to be built to the West culturally, because you can see the soft power of movies, of games, of all things like that. However, he is not capable of letting anything that might be negative about China getting out there. So it's actually very hard to make and sell films, certainly contemporary films. And if you're a Chinese filmmaker, you can't make exactly the film you want to make. And also, why would you? Because there's enough money to be made within China. So there's not really been the will in China to make stuff that the West will love. And Black Myth Wukong is the first thing really to have made that bridge. And that's a story they can tell. They can tell historical epics.
That is main melody, big time.
So they can do that. And it's interesting with Black Myth because Steam is available in China. And so those 2 million concurrent streamers, it's hard to tell how many of those are actually in China or the environs of China anyway. So it might be that suddenly that enormous block of Chinese gamers have elevated this to a place that we've never seen a game before. But the interesting thing when you talk about Taiwan, and it used to be Hong Kong as well. So China haven't really exported big movies to the West. But Taiwan certainly have, and Hong Kong definitely did. Loads of brilliant action directors and huge films that have come out of both of those markets. So that's because they're not under the same censorship rules. So even Black Myth Wukong is made, as you say, by Game Science. Game Science is owned by Tencent, which is one of the biggest companies in the whole world. And Tencent essentially work within procedures that are set out by the Chinese government. So it's not state-owned, but it might as well be state-owned. It's certainly state-sanctioned. But if you're in Taiwan or if you're previously in Hong Kong, you can do stuff outside. The big new show from Taiwan, which is going to be fascinating. You can see a trailer. It's like a 17-minute trailer for this. It's really, really, really worth watching. It's fascinating. It's called 0 Day. And it's 8 different Taiwanese directors just telling the story of individual Taiwanese people. There's a false flag operation. China are about to invade Taiwan. And it's about the days of these people when that happens. And that is something that you can make in Taiwan and you can send abroad. And I suspect might be a big hit in other countries. But China
for now
doesn't. But China doesn't have that. Chinese filmmakers don't have that flexibility. And also, they just have this absolutely enormous market at home, which means that, there's a billion people who can go and watch their movies. So those are the movies they're making. But
yeah, the first time this year, the top 10 films in their charts are all Chinese made. They don't really need Western product anymore, and it's quite embarrassing when you think of how far the West has bent over for that stuff. I mean, things like the 9-dash line, which is the demarcation line on a map that China uses to show its kind of territorial claims over basically the whole South China Sea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very contentious in places like the Philippines and Malaysia and Vietnam. And you notice on films like Barbie, they have this crazy map of the world, where she's trying to find out how to get to the real world or whatever. But there were some little dashes around the bit that was sort of like China. Now, the Barbie filmmakers are like, no, we definitely didn't do that. I don't know what to say about that. People in Warner's say, no, we definitely didn't do that. I've spoken to people, but I have to say, it doesn't look great. Now, Abominable, which was a DreamWorks animation, that quite literally, there's a map in that. It does have the 9-dash line on it. And this is purely to get it into China. Now, that meant that it was banned in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam. So what it really means is that the Chinese government effectively censors US, UK creative content.
Yeah, I'll say two things about that. One is, yes, it doesn't work. There isn't a huge amount of money being made there because the Chinese creative industries are fairly self-contained and they have the stuff that they want already. So we've been chasing that stuff for a long time. The censorship thing is interesting because I've spent a lot of time in China and I love China. I love the Chinese people. And so my books are published in China. So you have to think various countries, do you want your books published? But I love the Chinese people so much. My books have always been published there. And occasionally they'll have censorship questions, but none of them comes to anything. They know the things they're supposed to ask, but actually the stuff gets that.
What sort of things do you get asked?
It's usually stuff around sexuality, things like that, which, as I say, I think there's a checklist they're supposed to go down, but the second you go, actually, I think it's okay. They go, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's we can do that.
Well, some people have allowed their things to be changed totally, which I find sort of bizarre. Fight Club, they were so desperate so many years after it had actually come out to get it released in China that they finally got it released, and it has a completely altered ending. There's a text screen which explains that the authorities triumphed after figuring out Project Mayhem's plan and that Tyler Durden was committed to a psychiatric institution. I'm not going to spoil the actual movie for you, but I'll just suffice to say that's not the same as the movie I saw.
It's a better ending. I think it's a better ending. That's the thing, isn't it? No, it's fascinating the amount of time and money that's spent trying to chase that Chinese market, because there's a billion people. You kind of get it, but year after year after year, at some point you've got to go, well, this doesn't really seem to be working for us, and we're losing a bit of our soul by doing it. And China doesn't really care, is the truth. So I think
they do
one.
care about going out into the, as you say, the soft power, and I think they care about going the other way now. And it started with people like Warner Brothers trying to invest lots of money in China to open multiplexes, which, by the way, in the end, they couldn't even get their own pictures released in. It's like, well done, guys.
Yeah.
And now what it is it's Chinese money financing American films. And it's this game coming out into the world. And it's going the other way now. So having people thought, I want access to the market. In order to prop up our kind of legacy business, we must get access to this market. Well, in fact, what's turned out is it's going the other way. And I think that is the significant direction of travel.
But genuinely, there's a fascinating thing, which is China would, of course, love the soft power of having a big movie open abroad. There is something about the way they use their propaganda, the way they have to tell stories, that is stopping that. And they can't find a way around that, which is why we haven't had a big Chinese movie. It's just it's not a thing they are capable of doing, even though they would like to. So,
but the thing is that they will learn how to do it in the same way that people thought that you couldn't have capitalism without democracy. Well, it's quite clear from what's happened that you can have it. And they will find a way, just as they found a way to bring this game out, and they will find a way, not just by covertly funding films and by effectively censoring US and UK and global films in order to get access to their market. They will find a way of getting things into the primary market.
I don't know that they will. That would be my rash prediction. I think there's something in the middle of that equation that is broken, that's going to make it very, very hard to do. That's my 2 penneth on it.
I think life will find a way.
That's my 10 yuan on that. Any recommendations this week?
I have got a great fun one. I went on Monday to see The 39 Steps, done as a comedy in which 4 actors play all the parts. I'm sorry, I'm such a Philistine, didn't see it the first time round, but it's so, the script and the staging and everything is so good. I really recommend it. It's at the Trafalgar Theatre in London, and I had a great time.
Excellent. Shall we do a question and answer episode this week?
I think we absolutely should do.
We should.
On Thursday.
Should we do it Thursday?
Yeah, let's do it. And please keep your questions coming to therestersentertainment@gmail.com. There is a deluge of them, but, keep the deluge going.
I'm just going to go and check into Cameo.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, now's the time to launch.
Now's
very, very late adopting.
I think now's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
See you on Thursday?
See you on Thursday.